in general, mainstream media is just like the story of the day. We're like a goldfish. They have no memory. It's just like every day they just wake up. There's just whatever. What's the story today?
You're totally right. There's this kind of bright, shiny light kind of thing going on where,
Yeah.
and yeah.
And like as an editor, you would think you would want, like, there are some things are just more important than others. Like you should camp on certain things for as long as you need to camp on them, right? Even if like a lot of ephemeral, shiny objects just go by in the meantime. But people don't seem willing to do that. And I wonder why.
Because it's way easier just to report what happens in front of you at the press conference, and, developing a story over days, weeks, and months is, harder work, and especially when you're talking about the TV networks, the cable and news networks, they just like to talk about news of the day and have they don't like to do a lot of reporting. They don't like to do a lot of fact finding. They like to have people sitting around talking about facts that other people, dragged in. But good journalists, I've worked with some great journalists, know how to take a 1-day story and turn it into a 5-day story. They know what the next angle is. They know what they haven't gotten to. And frankly, and the really good investigative reporters that I've worked with, before the first story even got published, they knew what the second, third, fourth, and fifth story were going to be. And that's good journalism. That's when you're taking this. We know this is a good story, and we're going to milk it. And we're going to milk it not, for personal advantage or whatever. We're going to milk it because it's important for people to pay attention to this. And it's really hard for people to pay attention to something in a serious way if it flashes up on their Facebook page one day and they never see it again. I just feel like there's a lot of journalism today that's real flash in the pan, get it done quickly and move on. And the Republicans know that. And so that's why they always throw up new crazy stuff. The Epstein thing is a good example because, I'm appalled daily with all this. You talk about Trump suggesting that Governor Walz was behind the murder of that state legislator. That to me, that would be a career ender in a normal, but it didn't even, I don't even think it lasted an entire news cycle.
No.
And so there's always crazy stuff that should be appalling. And so, when Trump was in his 50s, he said that his daughter, who was then 17, asked him not to date any girls younger than him. Let that sink in. So his daughter, who's 17, is asking him not to date any girls younger than him. There's, yet the people who are supposedly the moral, keepers of our society aren't bothered by that. I am. But Epstein seemed to kind of roll down the river just like everything else. And it's just kind of amazing that it came back. More story. You're totally right. The more that's an exception. And I guess it's an exception because you actually were able to get some of the people on the right appalled as well. They just overplayed their hand by suggesting that it was all going to expose Bill Clinton and it was being, quieted down. But then when you had, Pam Bondi and the rest of the Trump people, clearly hiding the Epstein files, which they're still doing, by the way. They are violating the law that they signed about the Epstein files. They're not releasing what they're supposed to be releasing, what they should have already released. So that's still going on, but that has had power. It's had power because obviously it's about the victimization of children, for one thing. I'm gratified that that's back. I thought maybe we'd never hear from it. It'd just be like everything else. By the way, I was appalled by Trump drawing on that weather map, pretending that the hurricane was going to get Alabama when it didn't. To me, that was like this thing. I feel like the media kind of took a cue from the public a little bit and overestimated the public. I think that the news media figured, if somebody is somebody is caught on tape bragging about grabbing women's private parts, that everyone would be offended by that. Turned out the evangelical Christian leaders didn't bother them at all. That was just, I guess, I think what's happened in the last 10 years is that it's really been exposed that there's a segment of the American public that is so racist and sexist that it doesn't matter how much of a criminal you are, they're going to support you. And then beyond that, you have extremely rich people who are willing to support a racist, sexist criminal as long as they get their money. And then, you
Yeah.
know, and then you get these religious leaders who, as long as, you know, Trumpism helps protect their money and their flock, are in favor of them. So you have all these different people with different self-interests who are perfectly willing to surrender any concept of decency in order to support this guy. And I'm not trying to excuse the news media, but the news media, I think, felt like when when they reported that Trump, you know, called, insulted John McCain, who had, you know, spent like 6 years in as a prisoner of war.
Right.
They figured that the American public would say, "Oh, this is terrible. We're not going to support this guy." No, it didn't. Nothing mattered. Nothing stuck to him. And I think that left the news media in a position where if the overwhelming majority of the American public isn't going to be offended by that, then we look bad being offended ourselves, because because the standards, moral and ethical standards of the news media, I think to a large extent are designed to reflect the moral and ethical standards of the public at large. And so the news media was really caught off balance when it kept on bringing up these, you know, horrible incidents, you know, with Trump just doing, you know, making fun of, you know, a disabled person and stuff. I mean, just disgusting stuff that any decent person would be appalled by. And it just didn't matter with opinion polls. I think that the news media they were confounded. I think they just didn't know how to react to it.
Is it unique to Trump, or does this carry forward? There will be life after Trump. There will be media coverage after Trump. What is that? Do you think this was uniquely bizarre because this guy's been lying since he's been manipulating the media since he was in his late teens? And, you know, do we get back?
No, we're never getting back. I mean, if we get back, it'll be decades. And the damage that's been caused in the last few years is horrendous. It's like somebody burned down half your house and the rest of it's on fire. I mean, it's awful. And recovery will be, if it ever happens, will be slow. What 77 million people did to us last November is just an act of violence against me and my family and everyone I love. And that's the way I consider it.